Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. A fairly packed, crowded house. Again, I'll use that New Zealand reference for the Kiwi who hasn't joined us yet. Welcome, one and all. Drone stuff this week is it's a full house, which is great. And first off, I need to say well done, Richard, from Altitude Angel. I know you're enjoying a party right now. Well done on your, I think it was $4.5 million funding that you got today. So fair play, Altitude Angel. Well done. Good on you. Oh yeah, that's right. I've got some alcohol here just to toast you. So well done, Richard. Anyway, right. Good evening, one and all. Where should we start? Let's start with Rupert White, the man with all the aeroplanes behind him. Rupert, you have flown what is said to be, or could be said to be, a record speed in that little wing behind you, isn't it? Rupert, you.
That's the one there. Yeah, the ready-made RC Strix Goblin. That's the one.
And why have you flown that very fast? What's the story?
I just love I love the sound of it. I've got to be honest. I think that's the main motivation for me. Really, is strapping as much power into something as small as possible as I can. Really, I think that's what gets me going. And kind of push the fun jet as far as I could get it to go, and it seems to hit a brick wall. At sort of 220, 230, got 250 out of it in a storm downwind, but got offered the chance to build a Strix Goblin and see how fast I could push it, and it was really surprising actually, and I think there's more to come actually. So is that standard, or is that full of special parts? No, it took me probably three months. I'm quite a slow worker, to be honest, but I had to cut the back out of it and mould a carbon fibre motor mount and bond that in there. And it's an HDPE fuselage, so polyethylene, so nothing sticks to it. So it was a real game. What I should have done probably is mould a full carbon fuselage for it, but I didn't really know how well it was going to work, so just went with the HDPE and a carbon rear mount and a 6S power plant in it, which is 2,700 kV on 6S and pulls at peak around 6,000 watts.
Oh my God, 6,000 watts.
I don't know, that converts to about 8 horsepower or something through a 6-inch propeller. So you can imagine what kind of noise it makes.
So is it a 6S nuclear power plant or a regular light bulb?
It's a Hobbykin graphene actually, which is a really surprising amount of power they can give. I mean, I've put a clamp meter on it, and it does initially show a bit past 300 amps actually, kind of 320, but drops back to sort of 300 for a couple of seconds, and then down to about 280 amps, and the voltage kind of drops from sort of 25 down to about 20. So I don't know, we're in the sort of
about
60.
5 to 10 seconds of flight time, or what are you looking at there?
Yeah, it's about 10 seconds of full power, really. I do two runs of about.
How many per flight? 2, 3 per flight.
so yeah, I do about 2. Normally do a takeoff and then 2 kind of 8-second runs, and maybe I've got enough for a half throttle go around, and then it's landing at sort of 10%, 5% or something. So batteries last about 3 flights before they've lost their punch. So it's an expensive bird to fly, really, but that's what it takes to get that sort of speed.
Wow!
But it's surprising actually. I mean, there's guys in Germany with full carbon planes, and they're going past 300 miles an hour. But I mean, this is a foam wing, plastic fuselaged pusher plane, so it's not even a puller, so it is less efficient for speed. So really quite surprising results actually. I'm very pleased with it.
So what do you think held the fun jet back then?
Just aerodynamics, really. I think this is designed by a guy called Kevin, and it follows some interesting aerodynamic principles with the kind of the overall volume of the plane and how that appears. If you can imagine the volume of the plane in kind of plan form, that it follows I don't know if you can see my hands, but a football, American football shape. So if you take the whole volume of the plane from nose to tail, it follows a very smooth curve. Like American football, so the way it pushes the air out of the way is very smooth, where the Funjet has a much more irregular kind of volume plan form, so the air has to change volume more frequently down the body of the plane. So it's quite interesting, really, and well, you know, the numbers say it all, really.
So only laminar flow of air around the plane, right?
Yes, I guess so. I'm no aerodynamicist, so I'm taking this guy's word for it, really. I know how to make stuff strong and throw brute force and ignorance at it. So that's my secret, really.
More is more. And now behind you, behind you there, you've got a Spitfire, and as cool as going fast with that wing it is. I don't know if everybody's seen Rupert's Spitfire video, but the Spitfire video is the bee's knees, and I love it to bits. When I finish, I will put it in the link below. And for our live stream viewers, yeah, I haven't got it here in front of me, but the Spitfire is wonderful. How long did it take you? I'm going to ask you probably more about the Spitfire. How long did it take you to get the Spitfire right and get the look and feel?
Yeah, I just dropped out there. Actually, I've got a freeze here. I don't know what's happening. I'll talk anyway. Yeah, it took a few developments, really, a few autopilots and cameras and pan mounts and things before I got the kind of feel of it right. The autopilot's the secret, really. It's a My Fly Dream autopilot, and although it hasn't got any form of acro mode on it as such, it's only auto level. It really smooths the plane out, and you can just relax and use your head tracking on the camera just to look around and relax, and it just flies lovely. I crashed that one in a river in Milton Keynes, the first one. Unfortunately, I was having a flying day with my friends. We had a UHF lockout, and it chose to go straight in the river, and it was a very conductive river at that, so I lost all the electronics. Really, I've never seen anything like it. It eroded the pins on the receiver. The 5 volts was enough to sacrificially erode the pins on the receiver, so it destroyed everything, the GoPro, the whole lot, so about £800 worth of damage. So I was a few months without a Spitfire, and a TV company approached us recently to do some filming for a Battle of Britain kind of recreation. So I've built another one, and that's kind of fresh out of the box. Not flying that well yet, but hopefully there'll be some more videos to come from that. So,
sorry, Gary, have you seen those models from Hobby King, the Durafly ones? They have a Spitfire. Now they launched 109.
Yeah. They look good. One of the things with the Spitfire is it's not truly scale, but it has a sort of larger cockpit probably than a lot of the other models. So you can get a GoPro in it, and you're kind of sat back from the windscreen a little bit. So and maybe a bit higher up than you would be. I put the FPV camera a bit higher up than it would be in a Hobby King model. So whilst it isn't truly scale, you get a much better view of everything around you. So it's much easier to fly it in a scale manner than it would be if it was built more to scale, as it were. So it's a bit of a compromise, but yeah, it works really well. You feel like you're in a Spitfire. Honestly, within 5 minutes, I forget that I'm actually flying a model. So
it's very cool.
Great.
I've put the link in, dear viewer. I've put the link in the live chat, but don't watch it now, obviously. Watch it later. No, it's great. It's really good. Very, very inspiring. What's next on the build table then, other than this movie?
I guess what he misses now for the Spitfire is some gasoline smell and burnt oil smell also.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, but then you'd have the vibration too, so maybe it wouldn't work with a GoPro camera. But yeah, next on the build table, I've got a Lambert Calibri T50 turbine, which is a 50 Newton turbine, which I'm putting on a composite pusher jet, which is quite similar to a fun jet, but a much thinner wing and smaller fuselage. So hoping to be the first past 300, possibly more than that as well. So watch this space, really. Hopefully this summer I'll have that in the air. So it's a lot more.
When are you when are you going to take up real high speed flying and do some dynamic soaring?
That's always, on my videos, that's always the first thing anyone says is, the gliders are faster, and it's like, yeah, sure, I know that, and I would love to see one of those fly. I bet that is something else to see. I mean, even the videos, you can't really see it on a video because it's one frame for a whole circuit, so. Yeah, I would love to see one of those fly in the flesh. The noise of my electric one is the buzz for me, really. It's even I can't say a mile away, can I? But let's say I was a mile away. The noise is just breathtakingly loud and fun. The Doppler effect of it coming towards you and things. It's magnificent. So the sound of a glider cutting through the air at 500 miles an hour, so with some sort of transonic airflow over it, must be really quite the thing.
Have your thumbs or fingers, depending on how you grip the transmitter, have you developed special spider skills? Is it really quick stuff? Or
No,
do you
I don't think it's. I don't know. I'd like to say it's not that hard. I think people are more scared of it than they need to be. Really, of going fast. It's you know, as long as the plane's well set up, you just go. You know, you keep your eyes on it. So it's a lot easier to fly as the pilot than it looks as a spectator. When you see the plane going that fast, you think, how on earth can someone keep up with it? But you know, if you're flying it and your eyes are on it, it's actually not that difficult, really. To be honest, a bit of practice and a bit of confidence, and you're good. You know, it's certainly scary. You certainly get sweaty palms when you're holding it in your hand, ready to go. And there's 6 kilowatts, and you know, if a propeller blade came off, it'd be
yes,
you know, it'd be
might chafe a little, mightn't it?
yeah. So yeah, it's exciting. I'll give it that.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing. Well, stick with us. I'm not very good at this whole presenter thing. Stick with us. That's the sort of thing they say on television. Stay with us while we talk to other people. And just dive in with questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Anyone that's new here, just ask questions. It's just how we do things here. I'm going to jump to Joshua next because I know that he's a very busy man, very, very busy man. And apparently, Josh, your running app's been tracking you and giving you away.
Yeah, well, not me. Actually, this is the Kitty Hawk running tracker app here. This is a little Fitbit knockoff. And so there's a company called Strava. They're just down the street, and they were collecting all the data points from all the Fitbits. And they published this amazing heat map with some X trillion points of data. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon how you look at it, they did not do a very good job anonymizing said data. So now you can go look in, for example, Syria and see the patrol routes and jogging routes of every coalition soldier. You can go look in Northern Africa and, surprise, do you want to know where the CIA outpost is? Yeah, it's right there, and you can see where everybody's been walking around the compound. So this is obviously kind of a big deal, but I was just, as soon as I'm reading this, I go, uh-oh, this sounds pretty familiar to me. The enterprise and government embraces this sort of less than enterprise grade hardware. The data is not necessarily being thoughtfully preserved or stored, and it's very innocuous. And then there's either a data breach or a data disclosure, and everybody's like, holy cow, this was all out there the whole time. I guarantee you there were some folks who came to work on Monday morning and just had the worst time. And naturally, because this is kind of the running theme of the industry, right? Of especially security industry. When do you drop like really big security industry news for the internet? Oh, like the day before Christmas, Sunday afternoon, right when you're in peak enjoyment mode of your little time off. That's when you naturally want to have the biggest disclosures of the year. So I spent Sunday reading about this. One, because I'm fascinated, and two, because I don't wear one. And you know what? I don't count my steps because I don't want to know. I'm totally okay with that.
So, all right.
I was going to say that's one of the main premises here is that, is this necessary? You'd think that, you know, high security or the military at a certain level, the question for any piece of technology is this necessary? And, you know, surely these people can jog and walk and do most of the things they're doing without tracking every step they're taking and their GPS location. So, you know, that's sort of a, I don't know that they're going to be able to easily fix the security aspect of this as long as they want to know where they were every second and their speed.
Yeah, well, this brings your point brings up one of my favorite phrases in computer security. It's a joke. Do you know the difference between operational security and informational security? I think I made this joke on this very podcast, Gary. But informational, yeah, it is a test. You don't listen to me ever. It's informational security is using a good password to cover up your racy photos. Operational security is not taking them in the first place. This to start with, or prize or government grade version of it, if it was really that important. The Pentagon, for goodness sake.
Come on, you get an Android phone that if you enable tracking, does the same. So the day that Google decides to do some advertising with that data, it's the same as a Fitbit or a Strava, whatever.
But at least that data is anonymized. I think the most terrifying part about this is,
Sure
this is from
it?
Wired UK this morning.
I'm not so sure of it.
Relatively well.
Because I can retrieve my history.
Well, so on Wired UK this morning, they actually were able to de-anonymize the data and get the names of the soldiers who are walking around Afghanistan. And they were able to go and follow people's Fitbits into their house. This is scary stuff. So lots kind of at work here. And then today, did you see Verizon drop support for the Huawei phone, just citing concerns that it's a Chinese-made piece of hardware and that they're worried about the potential data implications? These are big recurring themes in our society that we really have to address head on.
I believe that's a red herring, because you can forbid the Huawei phones, but are you going to forbid the chips inside the phones from other manufacturers which are also made in China?
Yeah,
that's the question.
Well, all right. Let's. Well, I can. Let me ask you the question, because let's say, I've got one of those white things over the back there. See, we're moving house. Observant viewers will notice things are missing in the background. But one of those white drones there, how do I know what's being done with my data from that? Which we can't answer because no one's here from DJI. But Joshua, what would you do? I use Kitty Hawk. What are you doing with my data?
Yeah, so we run man-in-the-middle attacks on ourselves to see where the data is going. And then we secure the data inherently in Kitty Hawk. So all of the telemetry is not going into some unknown cloud. It's going into the Kitty Hawk secure cloud. We do it by user. We pay a lot of attention into the integrity of what we're doing, how it's stored, and what you want to do with it after it's captured. So if you take a picture, we want to know, what do you want to do with this picture? If you do a flight, we want to give you the options to say, yes, upstream my telemetry, or no, do not upstream my telemetry. I don't want anyone to see this. And so there's a lot of different options there that we pay really close attention to because our customers demand that of us.
And that's what you're selling also, the possibility of having private data.
Yeah, and I understand how embarrassing it might be if you only flew 10 minutes a month, which I am so glad this data never leaked, because you would be just absolutely appalled at the amount of exercise that I get.
Fair play. Well, you wrote a very interesting article. It's in today's SOS News. So, dear viewer, if you want to have a look at that, have a look at that. Again, I'll put it in the links below. Good day, Bruce. How are you, mate? We'll all stop talking about you now.
Oh, that's a shame. I only came to hear about myself. I'm good, mate.
Well, no, Josh is gone. I know he was busy.
Let's get him off.
Josh has been anonymized.
Yes.
A man in the middle attacked him. Yes.
Something like that. It's a cricketing term, isn't it? We wouldn't understand that, would he? You missed Rupert's top bits about his aeroplane, Bruce. You're going to have to watch that again, moving very, very fast with 6 kilowatts of power, which was very.
I've seen it all on YouTube. Yeah, Rip's one of my favourites. Yeah, one of my favourites from right back from the Spectra 50 days.
There you go.
Bruce has always been a good supporter of me. He's taught me a lot over the years. And Bruce, I've got to say thank you, buddy, for your shout out for my channel. I've not thanked you for that personally, but you pretty much doubled the size of my YouTube channel for that. So thanks, buddy. Really appreciate that.
It's all good stuff. We're all friends here. Right. Let's move up to the north, very far north for me. Ian Hudson, Bradford, NESTA, I can't remember what they called it, but what does it mean? What does the NESTA UAS challenge thing mean? Tell us about it.
It's the high flying challenge, or flying high challenge, in fact, is what it's called. It's a government initiative. So there's a government department for innovation, and they've handed this task to a charity called NESTA, who have asked for 5 volunteer cities in the UK to look at integrating drones into everyday use cases. So they're looking at the moment to gather those volunteer cities to come forward. The application for that has already closed, and they announced the winners this Thursday. So at the moment, I don't even know which cities have gone, other than I know Bradford's gone because I was involved in that. And I hear that next door Leeds also went for it. But other than that, it's a mystery of how many cities will actually have applying for it. So really, I think this is about identifying use cases and getting the actual local authorities to lead this. So whilst, you know, they want as many stakeholders as possible, you know, whether it be the private sector or whether it's the police, fire and so on, but they want the councils there to actively be involved. So it's really about how do we use drones and actually embrace the technology. We see far too much in the world of councils and local authorities for no good reason. Usually it'll be down to a single politician just wanting to get himself publicity, that will just start talking about banning drones. And unfortunately that then actually it happens. You know, we get knee-jerk legislation based on news stories rather than science. And I think this will be a very good initiative. If for no other reason, then we'll actually address that. We'll actually have local authorities, you know, in large cities in the UK that can say, actually, wait a minute, drones are positive and this is how we can use them. And hopefully then that will cause other countries then to have a look at what they're doing and say, oh, wait a minute, if the UK can actually integrate this technology and use it positively, then surely we can too. Well, that's certainly what I'd hope to see come out of this.
Yeah, and it's interesting in that it is that they're talking. I'll read aloud.
Yeah.
Rating with selected cities, the Flying High Challenge will support cities to develop plans based on local community needs. I think that's quite interesting, isn't it? That it seems to be the first thing where they are, as you say, they're going to take your local viewpoint and see what can be useful in your city. So I hope for myself that they choose a mix of coastal, central England. You know, it has to be a mix. It'd be bad news if it was Leeds, Bradford, Manchester. You know, it's just all close together.
It gives the impression that they want that difference. And there's definitely text within what they published that suggested they actually wanted a mix. I mean, I think some of the cities, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted Bradford to go forward, because it can provide a lot of use cases in itself, in that it has got a lot of green space that you could use for early testing where it's safe to do so. It's got the built up areas, it's got modern architecture, and it's got historic architecture. And I think if you were trying to do deliveries, and especially if you're using some sort of vision systems or AI, you would need it to be clever enough to spot, you know, a modern office build from an historic building. So I think it'd be good to have cities themselves that can cover a lot of use cases. But like you say, within the cities that are chosen, it'd be good that they themselves can cover, you know, different uses.
Yeah, yeah. So you find out on Thursday.
Yes.
Oh, finger biting stuff.
Fingers crossed. I should have actually had a Bradford City.
You should have done.
On really, shouldn't I?
You should have done. Yeah, yeah. You're not playing the advertise. I should imagine every city's gone for it. I can't imagine a city in the UK that wouldn't be able to put that.
I think the problem is though I'd hope cities wouldn't just go for it for the sake of there's something on offer here, let's just go for it. I'm hoping cities that have gone for it have actually got drone communities and commercial operators and are positive about it. I know certainly locally there are a lot of drone hobbyists that go back, you know, before drones, you know, it was a RC craft, so I think that there's a lot of local passion. Certainly here there is in Bradford, and there's, you know, obviously there's commercial operators as well. So those people kind of got involved here, and I'm hoping in other cities where they have gone forward, it is a mix of people rather than just the local authority themselves saying let's go for something because there's something there to apply for. Yes,
I mean, if they bring in people like yourself that know the business, know the industry, it'll bring an element of realism to the proceedings. I can imagine some completely made up concepts coming through if you don't bring people that know about it in on the team. How big was your team? How big is the whole your group effort there for Bradford?
In our case, I think it was probably just short of a dozen, but it reflected public and private sector and the emergency services, which I think will be the key of most of the working groups. But I think you make a good point. I mean, I do think out of this, I would like to see some ambitious ideas come up. Maybe something that we can't do yet with technology, just so that people can put use cases and say it would be nice if we could do this. So people think, but at the same time, you need to also have some practical elements here. I mean, there's still the idea that you can just put drones in the air. They can fly for as long as you want, and in whatever weather. We know that's not the case. So I think these are the kind of challenges as well from a practical viewpoint that I'm hoping, you know, if there's a practical end to this project, that they look at those. I mean, I don't think, for example, we have enough tether options with drones. I'd like to see, you know, you see commercial operators, but they're always still tied down to batteries. And I'd like to see a lot more of use of, well, I'd like to see a lot more weatherproof drones, and you know, coming down in price, and also to see tethered drones. I think once you achieve those two things, there's a lot of practical use cases, and especially for local authorities when they're talking about, you know, maybe like mobile CCTV, you know, monitoring events, or whether it's, you know, lots of stuff is looking at locations and collecting data, and just trying to do that with the battery technology we have now is quite a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well, I look forward to Thursday and see what happens, and see where they are distributed. Louis, are you dropping in and out? Are you back with us, Louis? Just checking. Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, good. All right, so again, stay with us, Ian. And jump in. Just come on, guys. Jump in with questions. Let's jump now to Craig. Craig Issod. Now, if you follow RC groups, that's about it, really. It's about the place where I see him. You'll notice that Craig has some strong and sometimes forceful opinions on the world of the drone. And I must admit, I quite often agree with him, which is unusual. But GoPro, you seem to have set yourself up as a bit of an expert of what went on there and what's going on with it. Why wasn't it one drone to rule them all? Why has it gone away?
GoPro. Well, I would say I probably didn't follow GoPro other than purchasing one and then getting it actually broke, and I had to send it back. It took them 3 weeks to fix it, and then I eventually got rid of it because it wasn't very long after that they came out with the Phantom 2 version, whatever it was, that had the camera on it. So that was sort of the end of my real need for GoPro, other than boring videos of me snowshoeing through the New England woods, you know, for 20 minutes. And I do have one of those somewhere. But, you know, I follow the consumer drone beat. And I actually have my little, whatever you call it, title there on RC groups now. It has something about critic, maybe critic at large, because it's so easy in this industry, and it's being done. It's been done. And actually, it's been done, unfortunately, at a very high cost to a large number of people. That cheerleading is always a natural thing, you know, to do. And it's great that people are optimistic, and it's great that people think you get a little money together and you get a couple engineers together, and boy, they can change the world. And, you know, in 2 years, we'll have the bee's knees, as you say. But that hasn't been the way it worked. That's not how it works. This is something that I'm learning as well as anyone else. I should say, when these things happen, whether it's, you know, your 3DR or whether it's your GoPro or whether it's unique, we don't know if people like to pronounce them unique or unique or however you do. When these things happen, you know, I didn't know they were going to happen. 5 years ago, when I started my site, I pictured that in 5 years there was going to be this universe of, going to be like a lot of other products, you know, roughly equal maybe, or there would be some leaders, but there would be some in the middle, some in the upper middle. You know, there would be this really whole universe of drones. And it's sort of in the consumer world, which, again, I have to say I'm in the consumer beat. And if we want to use that as being under $2,500, that's one good way. And it's mostly the quadcopter beat. So I didn't think it was going to turn out this way. I didn't make it turn out this way, but I'm just watching it and saying, boy, you know, as things are going along, this is very interesting, you know. And when Unique was really the first manufacturer to, besides Kara, that came out with something every 2 weeks that didn't work, and you know, few people bought and crashed, and you know, some of them got to work, some of the hobbyists did, but Unique was the first one to really announce that they were coming out with sort of another RTF consumer ready drone. And even they, as I remember, they announced, did a lot of PR, and their website actually went away. If I'm not wrong, it went away for 6 to 8 months. And the product finally came out 14 months or more after when they first said, you know, it would come out. And, you know, whether it was better or worse or than other products, I use sales for that. Yeah, in the end, sales tells that tale, or tells most of that tales, because the consumer is smart. So GoPro is woven. It wove its way through everything. In a sense, there's two companies, and one of them still has a really good chance. You know, you have Parrot and you have GoPro, and the reason I mentioned the two of those, well, Kara, we could have considered them also, is that, I mean, Parrot was so far ahead of everyone else. I mean, here's a company that had they had the ideas, they had the engineering, they had the implementation, but they only finished 80% of it. And that other 20% was enough to make it not work.
How do you put Horizon Hobby on that with the Blade 350? When they came up with the Blade 350, it was a fantastic drone that still did things at the time that most, if not all, of the current drones don't do, like the circle around the pilot.
You know, it was a nice drone, and I had one of the first ones, version 2. It was a really nice drone, and I'd have to say that trying to be Horizon Hobby, I think right around then they became an employee-owned company, or they were at first, and then venture capital come in. Some of you people may know more of these timelines than I do, but the company did get bought and sold somewhere in that mess. But even before that, they tried to be everything to everyone, and I don't think they had the vision when they came out, even with the first 350s, which I love that drone. I love flying that. I don't think they were looking ahead. They were a toy company. They were an RC company, and this was going to be part of their line. And since DJI was selling these phantom-looking ones, that meant there's a market for those also. So we'll sell these, and we'll sell these toys, and we'll sell this. And then what happened was some real problems, engineering problems. When they tried, instead of designing a system from the ground up, and we can use this with many systems, you know, all the way from an aircraft carrier to a smartphone, is that the difference between designing a system from the ground up or taking something and then trying to make it into something else. And they took the 350 and they added on the gimbal, they added on the GoPro, they added on, and then they had these RF problems. They had probably problems with the payload, and the motors started failing. They had quality control problems. I think this was all occurring within some of that time frame where the company was either negotiating to sell or did finally sell to a, I'm just going to use the word, one of these firms, there's a name for it, but the firm, not a firm that all they cared about was this firm. They own a number of different firms. This is just in their stable. And it's hard for a company like that to compete with a company that works, you know, we'll take DJI, for instance, you know, with guys that are working 70 hours a week, 6 days a week, you know, have cots in their office and have their eye on, like, well, they have their eye on 100 things, but they're looking years ahead, and they're doing it day in, day out for just these few things. Not for, you know, we're not also going to sell a lot of our little $69 model and a lot of these airplanes and a lot of these others. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I guess since we all learned that drones are hard, I think that put it all in perspective, that they're so hard that it would be like Intel starting to develop microprocessors and instead developing an entire computer system and printers and a network and, you know, everything else all at once, you know.
I believe they do. I believe Intel does something like that too. They do the chips for all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they bought some pre-assembled. So to get back to the GoPro, and Gary, you can cut me off anytime throughout all of this. I have an article on my site, which is quite extensive, that sort of follows how it all went and how all these decisions were made years and years and years ago. But, you know, GoPro and Parrot, they had the opportunity to be the leaders, you know, number 1 or number 2 or even number 3, but they stumbled at various and sometimes at many places along the way. In GoPro's case, what happened is the lack of making those decisions or making the wrong decisions each time would delay them to the tune of years. So it really, in the end, you know, they came out with something that we could argue about exactly how far behind the technology is compared to what, you know, could be built today or could be built in 2 months. But you know, these decisions led to the delays that led to a product which was you know, not up to the current times, which led to improper sales, and then everything else that could go wrong did go wrong. You know, the lack of engineering, overconfidence. That would be, if I had to use one word, it would be overconfidence. The analysts report they were so off the wall. I mean, they were really talking hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue in the first year. For the drone. And you know, it's hard to find those reports anymore. I don't know if some of those analysts took them down, or, you know, you can find some of the figures, but you can't find all of them. But when I was reading these things, I was like, what? They're going to sell like half of all the drones in the world? You know, they're going to introduce this in March, and that same year, they're going to sell half the drones in the world. And well, you know, I'd say it turned out worse than most of us would have even thought, because, you know, even a pessimistic guess would have said, okay, it's going to come out, it's going to work, they'll slowly evolve, they'll gain sales little by little, and maybe, you know, GoPro Karma 2 will come out, or GoPro Karma, and it will be a part of their product line. Now, given where we are today, maybe some of you have more information than I do, but, you know, when a company's stock goes from 90 to 537, and, you know, it may have danger of becoming unlisted at a certain point. It's worth less than $1 billion. You just have to wonder what their future is at this point. So that's about where I am. But they are not in the drone industry as a player at this point.
So I'm wondering, you know, what's the advice? What's the advice for new players? Because they keep, okay, so we've seen it fall down, and my personal opinion is by tying it to that relatively bulky camera, especially when you put it on a gimbal, you're immediately into a larger size aircraft. And of course, they really dropped the ball when they were cocky with DJI and wouldn't do a deal with DJI, and DJI said, well, we'll make our own cameras then. And then, as they say, the rest is history. But if you're tying it to this big bulky thing, straight away you're into a large platform, and the whole world is marching towards a sub 1 kilo world. It's definitely where we're going. Are we stopped? No, we're not stopped. Craig might be stopped.
Okay. Maybe I'm still.
Bruce, go on, Bruce. You go on, Bruce.
It's interesting. The DJI versus GoPro thing was a really interesting scenario, because in theory, GoPro should have owned the market, because what we're talking about are flying cameras, and GoPro had the camera market. But I think what happened was that, in fact, the Karma was actually an attractive offering. If it had worked as well as the others, it would have been great, because it had, well, you got a free GoPro with it basically, and everyone wants a GoPro, and it came with it like a gimbal on a stick. It was a really clever piece of design engineering, but I think the problem is that DJI is an extremely clever company, and they had that Mavic sitting there just waiting for the Karma to come out so that they could trump them. And they did. They brought out, it was big announcements for the Karma, and then virtually next day, here's the Mavic. It does everything the Karma does and all this extra, and these are the benefits. So I think they were just snookered by a cleverer company. But where GoPro should go, in my opinion, is, Gary's right about the big camera thing. The future of consumer drones is sub 250 grams because it just removes all the hassles. And what GoPro should do is come out with a really small drone, smaller than the Spark, one that's really small with their camera technology on it, because they can miniaturize that right down. And then if they produce a sub 250 gram machine, basically they would trump DJI, because DJI don't have anything that small. And yeah, it may be a bit more limited in terms of flight time and functionality, but it would be a big name consumer drone, sub 250, no need for registration. You can put it in your carry-on luggage on the airplane. It would be a killer machine. I think the whole market's waiting for the sub 250 gram machine that would give you the GoPro function, or the DJI functionality in a smaller frame.
Bruce, you forgot one. You forgot the new one from DJI, the Tello.
Yeah, but that's not really focused at the same market. I think it's kind of, they've made it a bit light and fluffy, and they want to get developers on board, and they want, a little dance to the music. What people want, they don't necessarily need all that fancy stuff. They want a camera that flies. Make it really simple, because basically your average consumer is quite stupid, and including me. And just make it really simple. It's a camera with wings. That's what people want. And if GoPro can do that under 250 grams, they will effectively have created a new market, which is the same market that the throwaway Instamatic camera created in the face of all the big expensive DSLRs of the day, and the things you put out these really cheap throwaway cameras. Well, suddenly home photography took off, and if you do that with the drones, I think they could do the same thing if they haven't destroyed their market with the Karma.
It's worth adding to that as well. The GoPro camera, the recent one, the 360, the Fusion, is a nice bit of tech. I've got one myself, and I've loved playing with that and 360 photos, and they've done that really well. And that again is where you can have an opportunity with a smaller drone, because you don't need the physical gimbal there. It's all done within the lenses and within the software. And there's kind of a missed opportunity there really with the Karma, and that they went for the normal hero range and weren't giving anything there that was different and unique to other drones. Where if they'd integrated what they were doing with the Fusion with what they did with the Karma, and you had a 360 drone and it didn't even have a gimbal, you would have had something there that would have been a unique selling point and would have found a fan base regardless, just because it was something different.
Yeah, but even if you go back a little and you see what GoPro did with 3DR and the Solo, even today the interface to control the GoPro camera is not public. So they went for the locking everything and not exposing ways of controlling the cameras. We all know of several hacks that people did and still do with GoPros, and the other manufacturers of lower spec cameras have ways to control the cameras and do lots of things with the cameras, which GoPro also can do. We all know, because we saw the Solo doing it, but no one till today, no one can do it because it's still locked. And I believe that will go to whoever buys GoPro's assets. And regarding GoPro developing a new drone, I don't believe. They fired most of the drone division, if not all, and they're up to get someone to buy them. What's to buy on GoPro? Patents, processes, and
they're in survival.
The brand name.
I mean, they're worth 800. They're worth less than $1 billion now, and they're probably still burning money. I mean, in other words, probably not profitable even on a daily basis. Even with the cameras, they lowered the price, so they don't have the money to develop a drone. If they did develop this great drone, they don't have the money to build enough of them to sell them, to give credit to the suppliers. So yeah, I agree. That one is almost an impossibility. At this point, it does seem like either just close the doors, or more likely, because the that amount of money is so little for some of these other companies that have have values, more likely for $500 million or so, which is, what's that going to be, 1/20th of the 5% of where it was. Somebody will just buy it, and who knows what they'll do with it. Sometimes these Chinese companies, they bury it. They just bury I don't know what they do. They might use some of the technology, and then you just never hear of it again. Or they put it on something weird. They put the name on something weird. Like, can everybody see this?
Yes.
This is a DJI hard drive.
Yes.
That Seagate or some Seagate fly drive. And you know what makes it different than a regular hard drive?
The word
sticker on the top.
Just about nothing. In fact, I found it in some cases. It has a slot for an SD card, but it has no, what you'd think like a small LCD on it, or something that you could just take this along with you and have if it had a little battery in it, or if it was powered, and you just put your DJI SD card in here and you wait 2 minutes and it transferred everything to here, and it gave you a little status and told you and did all these things. It doesn't do any of that. Not only does it not do any of that, it doesn't do anything. And it comes to you with a USB-C connector, whose guys like me, despite how many years I've been doing computers and how many computers and iPads I don't have a single connector. And so I ordered a connector to connect to a regular one, and I tried that, and then the thing didn't work. And I had to go find a connector that was a one-piece connector instead of a connector that connected to a connector. And I have my fine DJI Seagate drive. So we might see a GoPro hard drive, see this, or a GoPro ice cream flavor at Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, no.
Well, the interesting thing now, though, is that the technology is there. I mean, you take a little drone like this. Previously, you couldn't carry a HD camera, but now there's people like RunCam who've got a thing called the RunCam Split Mini, 24 grams, and it gives you full HD plus your FPV camera. It'll record on board. I mean, what someone needs to do is, in fact, I'm actually looking at a machine at the moment that's been sent to me for evaluation, and pretty much looking at a little micro drone like this, a onboard HD recording camera, which also does FPV. And if you can combine that with some software like Arducopter and simplify the front end so it's super easy, suddenly you've got something with DJI functionality at under 250 grams with HD recording capabilities. And you will, if you do that, you will create and own a new market. The problem going in trying to compete with DJI is they own that market. And the secret to success is don't try and compete with giants like DJI. Create a new market segment that they don't have any presence in. And then you own that market. If you're the only one selling the product, the market is entirely yours. And if you can gain ground quickly enough, then DJI become the competitor. They have to compete with you and take share of your market, which is much harder than taking the market that no one else is in.
I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong here, so correct me, someone. Umbrella, that lot. The lot that make the clever chips that go inside all this gear.
Umbrella.
There we are, Umbrella. That's what I said. Umbrella. I see that they have reported a downturn in the sales of their chips to the SUAS market, which is very interesting because that sort of goes against the current thinking that it's on an X.
Good for them because they were nasty and would only sell the good chips to GoPro, so good for them.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that's come about is because GoPro created their own sensor, so they basically lost GoPro as a customer.
I think, don't they sell them to DJI as well?
They may do, but I thought DJI was using Sony sensors.
DJI
it's not so much the sensor as the processor.
They're using a multitude of sensors, depending on the unit, and I think it's obvious that once the volume gets high enough for any of these companies, like we've all read those stories online. I think it was 800 people they said work on Apple's camera. So it's not out of line to think of, you know, a company like DJI eventually having, you know, 100 people, you know, 150 people working on just the systems on a chip that run just the camera.
I believe it will be more
part of
with
the systems.
will be more because we have to bear in mind that DJI bought Hasselblad, which is a large camera and traditional camera manufacturer. And I believe we are seeing from the new drones, or sorry, the new flying cameras, some of the work from Hasselblad, and their top of the line cameras are priced accordingly to what Hasselblad cameras used to cost. Only that you have something that takes them in the air.
It's worth noting that Hasselblad was often rebadged Sony stuff. So they had their own tech, but there was a lot of Sony rebadging as well within their product range.
I believe Sony does the sensors for most of the market, including Nikons and all that. So Sony's sensors are what commodity, and what the big game on there is processors like the Umbrella processor and all the processors. So there's a difference between the sensor and the processor. And I believe my Nikon camera has a Sony sensor. I'm not sure, but perhaps. So Sony sensors are a commodity. I'm not surprised that the Hasselblad might use them, or even DJI use them. The thing is not so much what you do, what sensor you do, is what you do with the sensor. And those smarts that, for instance, we can see on the iPhones are still to come to most of the Android phones, and also to drones. I would like to see some of the capabilities of the recent versions of the Android of the Apple iPhone cameras on a drone.
No, well, no doubt it'll all come. Look, it's 8 minutes to the top of the hour. I've got this point at the time where I've got to say, has anyone else got anything else they've seen this week that they want to talk about?
Can I just add something?
Go, Rupes. No, you go, mate.
I'd just like to refer to Bruce's point, actually. He showed the mini quad there with a run cam on it. And I think there needs to be a bit of a coming together, really, between the racing quads and the camera drones, as it were, because I don't know whether I represent a large part of the market or not. Probably not. I don't really fly drones as such because I don't think the performance is that exciting. You know, I think you can get good pictures from them, but they really don't perform that well. And I'd like to see something that's more based on a racing drone, but with the sensor technology in it. So something that's maybe a bit more exciting to fly and a bit faster, and that has the sensor technology on it, as Bruce is intending to build there. But with this slightly smarter brain in it, you know, where it would have position hold and the ability to sort of take the shots that maybe a Mavic or something would, but actually with the performance of a racing drone, which is all there for the taking, I think. The battery technology is there and the motors are there, and we can see quadcopters flying at sort of 170 miles an hour now. I think the record is. So 100 miles an hour is easily possible. And I'd like personally to see something a bit quicker, really.
We know you're all about speed, Rupes.
Yeah.
But there is some interesting stuff happening, actually. I noticed that now there's a trend with mini quads to long range. A lot of people are going long range equipping for endurance rather than speed. And as battery technology improves and so forth. But I'm already finding I get a lot of people asking me if I can do some video for them, because you can't fly a Phantom 4 under a car, but you can fly a mini quad under a car. There are a lot of opportunities that mini quads, in fact, anyone getting into the drone industry want to do aerial video, I'd say forget about your Phantoms and Mavics, have one in your knapsack, but focus on the things that the other drone videographers can't do, and that requires having a more nimble craft, perhaps a smaller craft. You can provide the action shots they can't dream of delivering. So every man and his dog is doing all the simple stuff. You want to get into the more active stuff. So and there will be a melding, a crossover of technology. I think both camps have benefited from the R&D that's gone on in the other camp.
I think with action sports and things, flying, sort of car drifting, car racing, and things like that, I think the racing quads have got a real potential for opening up a whole new form of filming there, where you can really be much more part of the action than just hanging about and watching things go past. You can actually, be with cars and boats and things like that, and you can follow them at the speed they go at. So I think there's potentially a small, marketplace there that hasn't really been yielded yet.
But even that
Well,
market,
the child,
even that
After
market
you-
of
after you
for instance, following action sports, we can see, and I've seen them here following the Portuguese rally, and all over the world. I believe they are a worldwide sponsor of the World Rally Championship, the DJI drones, and I've seen those big Inspire running at 60-70 miles an hour with cinema quality cameras flying after the cars on a rally. So they're already there.
Is that a standard drone? Is that standard for an Inspire?
Yeah, Inspire is a standard big drone.
But will it do 70 miles an hour as standard?
Yeah.
Will it? Is that it? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Interesting. I watched a movie the other night. I don't remember what it was called, and I noticed one of the shots could only have been done with really, really good CGI, which I don't think it was, or with something much smaller than a Phantom, because of this. The shot started in a room. It went out the window. It flew through the branches of a tree, which you couldn't have fitted a Phantom through, and then it followed a street, and then sort of basically went into another building. And I'm thinking, either that's the best CGI I've ever seen, or that was obviously done with a very small quadcopter.
Well, I was going to say, aren't we all beginning to see enough of reveals of cakes on the Great British Bake Off, or the top of a garden across the wall? The shots are getting very dull. You can see the drone shots all day long now, and I think Rupert said, "Can it go?" or Bruce said, "Can it fly under a car?" And that's a really good, analogy. And have a look at the child Bannister. The boy wonder. Have a look at his recent film going out across the mountains, wherever it was, for Trappy. Some amazing following footage, and just the back to their roots, with the mountain diving and all that sort of thing. You won't see that coming from the Phantom class. So, but that's like any business, isn't it? You want to stand out. You want to be different from your competitor. So it's a real skill, and that is a proper skill to be able to fly like that. Take a lot of practice. So build it, Bruce, build it.
Well, the other thing I noticed, which I was going to mention, is there was a newspaper article today or on the line which said a man hurts his eye with a drone, and sure enough, some idiot flew a drone into his face and cut his eye. Had to be helicoptered off to hospital. And of course you might think, oh, that's terrible, it's bad news for drones. But in the same article, a child choked on a grape and someone had a heart attack at a swimming pool. So which is the most dangerous, drones, grapes, or swimming pools? I thought it was good context.
Craig.
Yes, I mentioned earlier just quickly Parrot, who I had given up on years ago because I bought so many of them and they all just flew away first time every time, 3 of them, and but yet I think they're finally seem to be getting it to some degree. Their sales,
I agree.
They finally. And what I would like to see, I would like to see them take a very large amount of their engineers and put them on that camera, and if they can get their camera to be, the non-moving part camera, it doesn't have to be 360 degrees. It just has to be, good enough, wide angle. If they can get that camera to be, 90% as good as a Phantom 3 or, a Mavic, almost as good as a Mavic. And there's so much they could do, not only with just the existing products they have, but that camera could be licensed to everybody from the military to security to you name it. That's where I think their ace in the hole is. They also have done incredibly well in terms of lightweight machines, lightweight batteries, long burn time. They've taken all these parts, but they've never put all these parts together. And you have to wonder why. I just keep looking at them, and why don't they get one of those TV shows to go in there, The Prophet or something, and say, listen, guys, you had it 6 years ago,
Yeah, but for instance, the parrot situation. As you know, we've ported Ardocopter for the parrot drone, but we could not control the camera because we only had an API to access the camera. So the same as GoPro, they didn't open up the controls of the cameras, which is always where they have their agreements with the umbrellas of this world, so not to disclose proprietary information. It's always a problem that you smash with licensing deals that are all over the place.
I think they're doing quite a clever thing with the Disco Wing now. They've whacked the price down. They've put in that I think we asked them to do that on this. Yeah, we asked them to do that on this very podcast. Told them they should do it because, spookily enough, that's the compartment in the back of the Disco looked like it would exactly fit. And funny old thing, it does. But of course, where they're going to make their money there isn't necessarily with that camera and that wing, but it's the lead-in to selling. It's the lead-in, the gateway drug to a Pix 4D subscription. And that's where the money is. So I think they could very well be selling that wing at a bit of a loss now, but they're getting people into the what's it like $600 a month or something, isn't it? Pix 4D, some huge sum like that. So I think they've been quite canny and quite clever at the minute. And you know, I have a lot of you have to respect Parrot. They had, you know, everyone laughs at the AR drone, but it was light years ahead of the first.
Yes, it was.
The first Phantom, and the technology it had on board was amazing, you know.
And it's still a darling for high schools. High schools that want to go with drones. It's still something which is very wanted for schools because it has a very simple programming mechanism and provides good mechanisms to teach kids to start programming drones.
Yeah, no, I suppose, you know, you could almost say if we want anyone to stay around, it would be them because they're trying. I don't know.
They really come up with some left ideas from the left field that no one is expecting, and that's good. For instance, the small Parrot drone, not the Disco. That idea that you mentioned. About the camera, self-stabilizing camera on using the sensor. It's a great idea. It's tough to make it work, but is a way to reduce the number of moving parts on a drone.
Yeah, it's always going to be the best thing to do, isn't it? Look, we've rolled over the hour. So, does anyone else have anything else before we go? Looking to Bruce, looking to that microphone.
I did notice that online this morning there was a Karma half price sale somewhere. I spotted that half price for the Karma.
Tough Karma? Is it a tough Karma?
Yeah, bad Karma.
And the thing is, it's not like the 3DR Solo, which has sort of got a cult following and a new life and went down to, what did it go down to in the end? $299, I think, and could, but it can be, new life can be breathed into it with a new cube, and their developers work on it. No one's going to work on the Karma. That's it. It's gone. It's over. It's had it. It doesn't have the ability. Oh, look, there we are. There's one. Look, there'll be one along in a minute.
You get the camera and the stick. The camera and the stick is worth half the price, probably. Maybe. Yeah. Except DJI just came out with a $129, Osmo Mobile, and I have an Osmo Mobile, and I'm telling you, I love that thing. I use it for making all my videos, and I put my iPhone 6S in there, and go to town. It's a great little product.
Now, Ian, is that the one with the new cube, or is that the old cube? Is that the old or the new?
I've got to admit, this is just one that I've stripped down for spare parts to go into other solos, but I have got the green cube, so that's my next task, is putting that in. In fact, I should have done it ages ago.
Yes, it's like this. it's hard.
I'm doing 4 screws, putting in the cube, and then flashing the latest Stardew Pilot onto it, and away you go. You've got a brand new drone.
Yeah, Yeah, unfortunately, Karma won't have that very soon.
No, you're quite correct.
It's very, yeah. I feel a bit sorry for the people that bought them just before Christmas, but there we go. That's business, I guess some people will say. Anyway,
I'm sure most of the Karmas they bought before Christmas were smashed on Christmas Day.
Well,
and returned in the first week in January.
all right then. So everything's all right then.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad you sorted that one out for me.
It's
That's
karma.
good.
It's their karma.
Yeah, I can sleep now. I wasn't going to sleep worrying tonight, but there we go. So with that, dear viewers, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching. Do join us again next week at 2100 GMT as ever, when I'll be in a different place, because you can see the boxes are being packed, as I said earlier, in the background, and hopefully I'll have an internet connection next week. We shall see. Thanks very much. Thanks, gentlemen, very much for joining us, and hopefully you can join us again soon. I want to hear all about Rupert's fast quad. It sounds like that's what he really wants to do now, is go fast with the quad. So I want to hear all about that. Ian, good luck on Thursday. You've just been through a very hard time. I hope it's getting better. And anyway, you know what I'm talking about. And Bruce, whatever. and thanks, Craig. Thanks very much for joining us for the first time. Hopefully,
Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. Cheers, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.